I have to start off with an apology. The Director of Elections for the Newry Armagh electoral area sends his apologies. Jimmy Fox sent us an email he said he's on the mainland at a rugby match this weekend, but he wishes he could be here. But in his stead, Jimmy sent 3 MLAs, Cllr Boylan, Megan Fearon and Conor Murphy, back into the Assembly, which was probably the most outstanding election result we've seen in many a generation. So I'd like to just give a big bullet bust to everybody who's involved in the election campaign recently. And the upshot of that election is there that we'll have a family meeting in Cllr on Tuesday evening coming for the Republican family to hear and to discuss the next steps forward. But in that vein, I'd like to introduce a newly elected poll-topping MLA for the Newry Armagh area to speak to us today. So a big fáilte mór with Megan Fearon Gurmail.
I don't think Cllr Boylan will be too happy. I think he topped the poll. But while I'm fáilte Cllr Bachan Dinne and Sean New, go Harry Hen and Charlie as na Laker Gale, na Fur August Namra, a Fur Bass or some Saoirse August or some Winter Nahara, and it's more an honour of Éan Shaw, Lorch in you. It's a great honour for me to be speaking here today, having had the opportunity to address this particular commemoration yet. But we're here to remember Keith Rodgers. We're doing that with great pride. Keith was a young man, just 24 years of age. He had his whole life ahead of him, and his whole life to look forward to. And again, we extend our sympathies to his family, to his parents, Teresa and Martin, to Michelle, his sister, her children, and all of Keith's family, friends, and comrades. I remember hearing there was a deep sense of shock and anger when the news came in. I think I was only in second year in school, but that is still very much with me. But when Keith took the very brave decision to join the IRA, he knew that he was standing up for Ireland, just as the leaders of 1916 did, and just as the men and women of the prison protests of 1981 and many other years did. Keith knew who his enemy was. He was a soldier fighting in a conflict, and he knew the risks, possible imprisonment and even death, but he was prepared to stand up and be counted. But it wasn't the Brits or the loyalists who murdered Keith. It was criminals of the lowest kind, lowlifes, and it's these criminals and their actions that has resulted in the demonisation of the good people of this area. Republicans in North Louth and South Armagh have been vilified and demonised by the likes of the SDLP, Micheál Martin and Enda Kenny, people who are not fit to tie the shoelaces of Republicans like Keith Rodgers. And so we remember him today with great pride, alongside all of those Republicans who have given their lives for a better society, for a better Ireland, a free Ireland, and an Ireland based very much on the principles of the proclamation. We're not there yet, but we have come a long way, and the events of last week have shown that we've taken a huge step forward. The surge of support for Sinn Féin at the Assembly election was truly historic, and I don't think we're going to fully grasp the significance of it for years to come. And last night again we witnessed even further progress as opinion polls came in the South, and we're now the second most popular party, surpassing Fine Gael. But in this area we returned 3 Sinn Féin MLAs, and as Tomás said, I'm very, very proud and privileged and honoured to be one of them, and I just want to take this opportunity to wholeheartedly thank every single person who took part in our election campaign and who helped make us history together, but we have a lot more history to make. And the success of that election, of course, it's not ours, it belongs to the people. Voters right across the north cast their ballots in support of equality, integrity and respect for a new way of doing politics, and they voted against arrogance and allegations of corruption and disrespect and intolerance at the heart of government. They stood up to contempt and arrogance shown to large sections of our society, just as Keith Rodgers stood up to arrogance and criminality in his own area and stood up for his community. But the election campaign reawakened communities, and it brought people back onto the streets, out to demonstrations and protests, and ultimately to the polling stations. It showed that people are no longer willing to have their culture and their identity trampled all over by a unionist party who think that they are dominant. People are not prepared to be treated as second-class citizens anymore, and we're all very proud of our Irish identity. But that democracy isn't just something that happens at election time, and the anger and the depth of feeling out there can't be allowed to fizzle out, because there's still huge challenges ahead for all of us. But I firmly believe that we can make progress. But for that to happen, we need to see a major step change from political unionism and from the British government in particular, because it's the British government that's the single biggest obstacle to reaching a solution here, as they've always been. It's almost 20 years since the Good Friday Agreement, and they have absolutely failed to live up to every single commitment that they've made, particularly around dealing with the legacy of the conflict, blocking truth and justice for many victims and families of state violence, people who've been waiting up to 45 years to hear the truth about their loved ones. And of course, its refusal to implement an Irish Language Act. That's completely unacceptable, and that has to change. Political unionism needed a wake-up call, and the need to recognise that times have changed, because the notion of a perpetual unionist majority at Stormont has been shattered, and everyone here today did that. We did that. Those days are gone, and they're never coming back. But we need to see a level of respect obviously from unionism and from the British government, but the Irish government have a key role to play in all of that, and to challenge the failings of the British government. Standing where we're all standing today, we know too well the effects that a hard border could have on our area, and the many, many consequences that would have for our lives and for our socially and economically, but also for the peace process. And with Brexit looming, and the government must need to act, they need to act in the best interest of all Irish citizens, regardless of where they live, north or south, and they need to get behind our campaign for a designated status. But the main thing that the Irish government need to do, they need to shake off the West Brit mentality that they have, and they need to stop acting like junior partners to the British government, because they're not. Challenges aside, though, we do have many opportunities. I think perhaps the biggest opportunity in a generation to advance what we now know as our radical Republican agenda, which I'm very proud of. But Irish unity is now very firmly on the agenda as our message continues to chime more and more across the country. More and more people want to see it in their lifetime. They're taking part in a conversation about what type of society that we all want to build. And those conversations are happening at every level, at kitchen tables, in the media, at boardrooms, and whether or not they want to admit it, it's happening in government too. But 1920s revolutionary Ernie O'Malley reminded us all that whatever political progress we've made, we forget at our peril that it's been made on the back of our volunteers. And I'm sure there's many here today who wish that there was people still with us who could have seen the historic results that we all achieved last week. But our vision is resonating with more and more people, and our vision is the vision of the men and women that we remember who lie in graveyards across Ireland. It's the vision of a 32-county equal socialist republic with equal rights and opportunities for all, and that's the same vision that Keith Rodgers had, and it's our duty and our responsibility to go out and make that vision a reality and build an Ireland that he and his comrades will be proud of. MLA Megan.
Cllr Megan, I'd like to thank once again everybody who's been here this afternoon, and I'd like to welcome everybody on behalf of Rodgers Martin coming into the Malachy's Clubhouse, where we'll have some refreshments and sit and chat amongst ourselves, and myself and Terry Harkey will take details of potholes for the next half hour, if that's okay. Cllr Tomás Sharkey.